All right, family. Assalamu alaikum. I don't know what happened. I thought that was Sister ZaZa, but I don't know what happened. But we here though. We are a resilient people. We are back. We are a resilient people. I don't know what that was. I thought that was Sister ZaZa. All right, family. But we back though. We back. Peace to the gods. Peace to the earths. We back though. We back. Because we are a resilient people. I tried to go live on YouTube, but that didn't work out. But we here though on a rainy Saturday night. On a rainy Saturday night, we here spreading knowledge, spreading information, because knowledge is 360 degrees, right? And so with 360 degrees, we have a sphere or a circle. And with the circle, you can't tell its beginning nor its ending, because it's continually rotating around. Okay? So that's the same thing with knowledge, right? Knowledge is forever. Knowledge is eternal or infinite, right? There's no ending nor beginning with knowledge. So just because you know a particular degree in knowledge, you don't know everything, right? Just because you know some degrees, plural, of knowledge, you still don't know anything, right? So knowledge is infinite. Knowledge is eternal. All right? So definitely, sister, if you on, you can request me. And so like I was saying before, family, I know some of you may be new to my page. So again, welcome. And you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, DTR 360 Books. We are on YouTube. We do have a website. We sell books, DTR360books.com. And we also have a book club, all right? Every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sorry, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We come together and we talk about the chapters that we've read. All right, right now we are reading the Kabbalion. All right, the Kabbalion book. All right, if you want more information, you can definitely Monday. All right, so let's get this show started. Welcome, family. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, hotep, Islam, alafia. Peace, sister.
Peace, King.
How are you, beloved?
How you doing? Can you see me and hear me okay?
I can see you a little bit, just like the neck and up. All right, yeah, that's a little better.
Okay.
How's my audio?
You sound good. You look good.
All right.
Yeah.
Indeed. Same here. Sorry about that one on YouTube. It usually tell me if you want to go live with someone else or want to go live together or something like that.
Yeah.
And I will press that little
All good.
toggle.
Technology has made a fool of me way too many times to even get pressed about it. I'm always like super patient when it comes to that process because it's something else.
Right.
All good. I'm happy to be with you today.
Indeed, likewise. It's been a minute. And I know we were supposed to come together on many times. Like in the summertime and even before. But alhamdulillah, we are here now. Ready to talk about your textbook. Ready to talk about many other things that's happened since we last spoke.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. All love. And shout out to all of your viewers, your audience, and of course, my people that I know are going to tap in. It took me a little bit longer because I wanted to let my membership channel family that know that we switched from YouTube to you. So hopefully everybody will kind of figure it out because I posted it on all my different social media pages, but they'll find us.
Indeed. I didn't have time to do that, but hopefully, like you say, they'll figure it out. All right, so let's jump into it. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, hotep, Islam, alafia. What's going on, family? What's going on? DTL 360 Books podcast show. This is the last episode of the year, and it's going to be a banger. This is the last episode of the year, but it's going to be a banger. All right, we have the phenomenal, illustrious sister ZaZa Ali. Many of you know her. If you don't, you will get acquainted with her tonight. She is remarkable. She is a scholar. She's a writer. She's an author. She's a business person. She's a mother, so on and so forth. All right, family. So again, and if you're not following her, make sure that you tap and you follow her right now, not now, but right now, okay? Make sure that you follow her. We're going to talk about her textbook, not just a book, but a textbook, okay? I don't know no other person who have written a textbook, but this dear sister, she has written a textbook for us, by us, and we will go and tap into that. Also, if you are now tapping in, subscribe to my YouTube channel, DTR 360 Books. This whole interview will be on our YouTube page. And also, you can buy your holiday books. Kwanzaa is here. Happy Kwanzaa to the people who are celebrating Kwanzaa. This is day three, and day 3 we are celebrating Ujima, I believe, right? Ujima, and it's the Kiswahili word Ujima for collective economics and responsibility. So shout out to all the Africans and Black people who are celebrating and supporting Kwanzaa, going to the events and lighting up your candles, so on and so forth. All right. So that's our celebration, is our holiday. I hope that you learn more about it. If you don't know much about it, learn more about it. And yeah, so let's tap in. So sister, thank you again. Thank you for coming. So let's start off with give a short bio, a breakdown of who you are for the people who may not know.
Well, I am Zaza Ali. I am an author, a writer, self published author. I just completed my seventh book, Ancient People, a Social Studies and History textbook. I am a teacher. I am an avid student and researcher of all things rooted in knowledge and wisdom and God and consciousness and, the expansion of the mind. I am a mother, obviously, like you said. That's definitely my proudest accomplishment to this day, my son and who he's become. And yeah, I'm a lover and a promoter of the culture, of the best parts of our people. And then I am also an adamant exposer of the worst parts of our people, right? And I don't just mean that in terms of, I say our people, but then I'll also say, Shaitan and his people
Mm,
and his pyramid of people and the things that they do. So my recent book was a history textbook. My first book was The Scientific Intervention in Our Affairs, exposing the systematic scientific and medical war against melanated people around the world. So I'm just here to spread love, to spread light, and do my part in the destruction of this world and the rebuilding in a new one of a new
and
one.
yes, yes, indeed, indeed. And today mathematics is knowledge. 28, which equals 10. 1 plus 0 is 1. So we are bound and vow to help spread knowledge, wisdom, and understanding as much as
Yeah.
possible. So let's get into it. So why you decided to write and publish a textbook titled Ancient People, a a social studies and history textbook, volume 1.
Well, I had known for a long time that I was going to write a textbook. It was kind of one of those things that I was like, okay, once I have my life completely in order, I'm going to take 2 to 3 years off and just completely immerse myself in writing a textbook. And obviously I never got to the point where I could just carve out 2 or 3 years in my life. But in 2020, the upheaval and dynamic changes that were happening in the world really propelled me to want to do things to inspire our people in particular, to homeschool their children and to take their children out of these schools. And so the timeline of that taking place and, just where I was at in terms of the books that I had created. When I was in college, I have a degree in African studies, and when I was in college taking all these different courses, those courses, but I was also studying European history
Mhm.
as well, because I was trying to figure out how such a small group of people had
Right.
had such a dominant effect on all of the indigenous people around the world, right? I was trying to make sense of it, so I was studying all of these things at one time. But one of the things that really stood out to me, and I went to my African Studies degree I got from the Laney College in Oakland, Merritt College. There is four colleges in the Bay Area that have a very strong Black Studies, African Studies department program, even to this day. And so I'm at one of the more liberal, more open schools and institutions that are teaching Black Studies, African culture, etc. But I hated the textbooks. I
Mm.
hated the way they made our men look. They were always docile and weak in the face and in their posture. I hated that the women were always, that mammy type of energy, or it was always a sexual undertone. Like the visualizations in the textbooks always really stood out to me. And I used to challenge my professors about this too. So when I was in college, I was not just studying the history, I was also studying the institution and how they were teaching the history, right? And so that's, even today with the whole conversation around critical race theory and how we're upset because Florida is trying to take certain books out of the school and whatnot. It's like, yeah, but what's in the books that are in the school?
Right.
Right. That's the thing. Like, we have to not just, okay, it's good enough that they're teaching some of our history. Like, yeah, but what are they actually teaching us? And it's not just the details, it's also the imagery. It's also the representation of different African culture or cultures. It's also starting at slavery, right? And so it was all of those things, plus just where we are in the history of the world right now. And like, there's a change of guards taking place. And it's time for our people around the world to come back to the center and to come back to who we are organically and naturally. And so this book is one of my contributions to us being able to do that, particularly for girls and women, and then particularly for our children, to get into the love of history, the love of African, the textures of all of the different global representations of us. I love it, and so I hope that the people who receive it love it as well.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So now you mentioned something in that answer about not only learning about African history but also learning about European history. Now, why is European history so important to know in parallel to African history?
Well, for me, just for instance, to look at the situation on the ground today and to see this very flagrant war. There is a synthetic war on organic life, right? I'm gonna say that again. There's a synthetic war on organic life. And I remember, I think it was one of Baruti's books that I was reading, and he was talking about how Europeans from the earliest inception of when we started studying, or when they started studying themselves, there's been this underlying war with nature. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
so whether it's because they were in Europe and the cold climates and all of that, and having to struggle with that, and then going around the world and seeing all these dark skinned people in these tropical beautiful places, right? Sort of being mad at God. I think that was sort of a starting point or a launching point to what later became known as racism, white supremacy, right? And so for me, it was, because we could look at the Native Americans and say, well, how can you let them do that? Or how could you have allowed them to do dot, 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 right? That's part of the conversation. But then the other part is like, damn, how could you go around the world and do that?
Right.
You know what
To
I'm saying?
begin
How
with.
could you go around the world and rape all the women,
Hmm.
right? And then turn the descendants of those children against their people and, use them to sort of jockey for power. And why did you take all the resources, right? You don't have to pay children working in minefields, pennies on a dollar. You could actually pay them a workable, livable wage, right? And still make billions and trillions of dollars. So I was really trying to understand the psychology and the mindset that put these people in the positions of power that have eventually led us to the world that we are all living in and experiencing now.
Yes, yes. And so how long did it take you to finish this project of the textbook?
Uh,
And what challenges did you
a
face?
little bit more than 2 years, and really, I mean, I start this the all the topics that I studied in the book, I've been studying at different points for like 20 years now, right?
Mm.
So when I decided to write the book, I chose the topics that I wanted to talk about. So there's 3 chapters that are specifically focused on queens and the feminine energy, and then there's 2 chapters that are specifically focused on kings and the warrior energy, and that was very intentional. So I would say the biggest challenge for me was I got to a point in the manuscript where I felt like I was ready to print it after, I'll say, about like almost a year and a half. And I felt like, okay, this is good. I'm ready to go. And so I turned my manuscript in to start the editing and formatting process. And as that was happening, I sat down and read the book as the student, right? Stepped away from it for about a week, and then I just read it all the way from beginning to end. And I was like, I didn't tell. There was certain stories and characters that were nagging at my spirit. Like, you didn't give this enough depth. You didn't give
Yeah.
this enough volume. Sakanuye no Tamurumaro, who they modeled the samurai after in Japan later on down the line, he was one of those subjects that I was like, yeah, but you didn't put enough, sort of elbow grease in that. So I sat with that for a couple of weeks, and I was like, damn, I already started accepting, I already put the book out there for the world, like, okay, it's ready. But in my spirit, it was like, no, this is your legacy. Meaning my legacy. I'm referring these legacies, but this is my legacy. This is my life's work. And so I said, okay. At that point, I had like 230 pages. I went back to the drawing board and I added like another 130 pages to it so that it would be complete. And I have more than 450 images of all of these different cultures from around the world. And so I wanted to make sure, because I used to duke it out with people online. I can
Yeah.
go toe to toe with the best of them, right? When I'm in that state of mind, and so I already knew what the arguing point. I know what the arguing points about the Moors are. I know that, oh, they weren't black, they weren't from Africa. I had those arguments. I used to be, chin checking a lot of people online, you know what I mean, about these
Yeah.
things. I'm being funny, but I know the arguing points for, Queen Gudit, so to speak, or the different queens from African culture. Like, I knew the arguing points, and so I was addressing a lot of those things through the images that I was showing. Like, yeah, argue with the pictures. You know what I'm saying? Argue with the statues, right? Argue with the hundreds, if not thousands, of representations of African men throughout Spain. Here's the pictures. So I was very adamant about that. But yeah, I would say that the biggest hurdle for me was having a manuscript, having to sit back and then be like, nah, I think I need to go back to the drawing board and really kind of put this, make this. At that point, I was like, let me make this a book for me. I was thinking about making the book for everybody else, and I realized it wasn't to my standard, and I was like, okay, now I got to make this book for me, right? And so that's when what we have now, what you have now, came to life.
Awesome. Now, I actually did have a question about the African samurai. Can you say his name again?
Sakanuye
Yeah.
no Tamu Ramaro.
Sakayuye? Oh,
Sakanuye,
Sakanuye.
yes, and then no Tamu Ramaro. So Tamu Ramaro is his family lineage name. So the no, just same thing with Moors and Ibn, right? So the last name represents the father's lineage, and then the no in the middle represents that sort of like bridge between the first and last name.
Mhm. So
Mm-hmm.
now, but Sakayuye specifically, though, you said that he was the first foreign-born samurai, right? What does that mean?
Well, so he actually technically wasn't the first foreign-born samurai, because what's known to be the samurai didn't come along until 400 years later in Japan. So he's not the original, model of who they give credit for the samurai to. But when you study his family, when you study his history and what he accomplished, he was fighting on behalf of the Japanese army at the time, and they called him the subduer of barbarians. He was fighting against the Ainu, who were also a dark-skinned Japanese people. Um, but he was a warrior, but then he was also very astute in politics, very astute in civic affairs, right? So he and his father and his lineage, the lineage of men, they were mercenaries who different armies would hire to go out and basically do the job their armies couldn't get done. But then they were also very astute in civic affairs and in political roles, right? Or civil administration roles. So they were, this kind of very well respected dignitarian type of position in this society. And so fast forward 400 years later, and that is exactly what the samurai were modeled after. So he sort of set the tone and set the bar. And then later on down the line, as they continued to develop and enhance all of the things that he, sort of taught and embedded in the warrior culture, they took that on and gave it an actual focus point of the samurai.
Mm. Now, it was said that during Sakayue's time, that for a samurai to be brave, he must have a bit of black blood in him.
Yeah, that's where that comes from. It comes
Yeah,
from,
okay.
yes. He didn't say that, but that sort of moniker has carried on through time because he was the first, so to speak.
Mm. So now you also wrote about in your textbook Chinese culture and civilizations, right?
Mhm.
Now Chinese culture and civilizations, do they have any similarities to that of African culture and civilizations?
Yes. So there's the San people, which I referenced in the book, who are particularly, well, the San is Japan, actually. I'm getting my bearings crossed. Okay, so the San people have very strong physical features that are very similar to the Japanese, as well as the way that they created their houses. Um, you, I'm specifying Japan because that's the chapter it's in, but really they look like Chinese people as well, right? But the ancient Chinese people go back to the Jia dynasty, which was the first, sort of known culture and society that they found plenty of archaeological digs that date back to tens of thousands of years ago. So there is the images, obviously, that I represented in the book. And then some of the spiritual representations. So Fushi and Nuwa is the male and female representation that started what we know as, Chinese culture, the writing, et cetera, and everything. And a lot of what the components of the spiritual teachings of the I Ching is what I'm talking about, tied back to different systems within African spirituality, the divination system, etc. So I would say that would be one example. And then the other example, the San people, relating back to the Jomon people. So the San people of South Africa, the physical features, the tight eyes, right, the specific hair texture, look just like the people that we now today know as the Japanese, and I would add the Chinese people as well.
So I think they was called the Bush people or the
Yeah,
Bushmen of South Africa. So they
yeah.
migrated to Japan, and that's how the Japanese have got their phenotype.
Well, that's one of the most commonly accepted theories. I, sort of give light to all of the different theories. Sakanuye's father, and his lineage, for instance, they said they came from North Korea to Japan, right? So their, sort of family history can be tied back to them being from North Korea in particular. We're talking about dark skin, very Chinese phenotype with straight hair. They said they had straight, oily type of black hair, right? So then we could look at the Dravidians in India, right, who have that same hair structure and skin tone, but then they have very different phenotypes. There's images of the Andaman Islands in the book as well, and I think it's 40% of the people today that identify as Japanese are tied back to the Andaman Islands, right? So I'm saying all of this to say that there are a number of different theories of where they migrated from, and I sort of provide all of those theories, and then I provide all the documentation to sort of back them up and let the reader decide, right? Because it's a history textbook, and I didn't want to be, you know what I mean, sort of telling people what to think. I don't think that's what history should do. I think we should present the factual data and information, and then let people sort of draw the dots in from there.
Mm. And so speaking of textbooks, right? I actually have this book here. And so thank you for gifting me with your textbook. I see that it not only have glossary and Q&A, which most textbooks have, right? It also has coloring pages, right? Where you can make copies and you can actually color these pages yourself. It also has crossroad puzzles,
Mhm.
it right. crossword puzzles.
Yes.
It also has vocabulary, understanding the power of words section, vocabulary. So this is a very different textbook.
Yeah.
Why did you think that it was fitting to include coloring pages, a vocabulary section, a puzzle section, so
Yeah.
on and so forth?
Well, shout out to my homie Shiva in the chat room. I just saw she left a comment, but you know, I love to learn. You know what I'm saying? I'm very curious about the world, and so for me, even when you look at the vocabulary, right? I want to make sure everybody knows this is definitely an adult book, right? When you say textbook, I think people automatically think, okay, I'll get this for the children, but like, no, this is a full-fledged, well-rounded textbook that I would and could present. That's how I had a brother who ordered the book from jail. I was so excited because I was like, yes, I can hit him on all different. He's got the reading, but then he can do the vocabulary, like all those different things. So the vocabulary is obviously to step our game up. We always say English is a bastard language. Okay, we'll have you bastarded yet. If it's that easy, right? You should be mastering it. So the vocabulary aspect is, you know, sort of honing in on that. The crossword puzzles and the word search puzzles, which I created myself by hand. That was a whole situation, that learning curve. But that's the, you know, the interest of words, putting words together, right? Exploring words. The coloring pages are obviously to sort of turn it into something colorful and vibrant, especially if you're a homeschooling parent. You can make copies and use it for, you know, what, for however long. Yeah, so it was just really about, here's the information, now let's retain it. Reading is one thing. Retaining information is a totally different ballgame. That's another thing I was realizing when I was in the school system. Like, this isn't even about retaining any of this information. It's about getting a grade. And so I wanted to make sure with the Q&A and like the critical thinking sections, like, yeah, this is what the book says, but now what do you think? Right? We had like Sakanuye, for instance. This was a dark-skinned black man who was at war with dark-skinned, you know, Japanese people. But was this black on black crime, right? It was, you know what I mean? Like getting people to think outside the box, because we've had wars between indigenous natures and cultures way before the white man got involved,
Right.
right? So just starting to, you know, that critical thinking aspect is like, yeah, this is what I said, or this is what the scholar said. Now, what do you think? We don't, you know what I mean? We're so shaped and molded in the image of quoting and parroting people, especially in the world of YouTube. Now you watch a video and think you're a scholar,
Right.
or you know what I mean. Everybody says research, and then they say I don't watch videos all day. Yeah, that's a form of research. But if you're a real researcher, you got like 4 or 5 different methodologies that you pull information from, and then you've got to be able to have your sort of big boy, big girl perspective to make this make sense, right? And so yes, the information, I always say knowledge of self is different than your knowledge of yourself. So the knowledge of self is the history on, you know, the ancient queens of Nubia, right? That's where we come from. So that's a very important sort of vantage point for us, especially as women in the diaspora, to sort of point back to. So that's one part. Then the knowledge of yourself is like, okay, yeah, but who are you? Your
Yeah.
family upbringing, trials and tribulations, over the obstacles you've overcome, etc. So I think that I wanted to sort of bring both of those things together, and again, just emphasize knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. You know, when I first started the book, I was like, how many textbooks have been written by, history books, not even textbooks, have been written by women? And it was like 75% are written by men. I was like, ding. Not because it's not even about a gender thing, not like, you know, because we're way beyond that, like, oh, I need to do it because no other women have done it. But no, it's the feminine vantage point. It's the perspective, right? It's the intention to make 3/5 of the book about women and 2/5 of the book about men, particularly. But when you look at the page count, it's pretty much half and half, right? But still, I'm intentionally pushing women to the forefront that have been erased out of history, because the alternative is sexy red.
Mm. Right.
You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
And so,
So
but
yeah.
why do you think that women have been pushed out of history, though?
I think women have been pushed out of religion. I think women have been pushed out of spirituality. I think women have been pushed out of mathematics and science, right? I think that somewhere along the way, and you know, the male, female, man, woman conversation is a part of this, but I also think that somewhere along the way, our men, due to multiple factors, have gotten out of alignment with their true nature, right? Who they really truly are, and really being centered in their sort of God foundation. And so from that space, even like Hafshet, when I talk about her in the book, it's like they try to erase her out of history, right? Well, we know part of why, because she said that she basically was the son of the Most High, right? She created a story, sort of the Jesus element of that story, right? The artificial insemination. Like she was like, yeah, I'm the son of God, because she knew that's what she needed to say in order to maintain this position in leadership as a pharaoh. And so she gets a lot of flack behind that, but I'm always like, yeah, but why did she have to do all of that in the first place? And what did the people say about her? She was beloved for hundreds of years after she transitioned, right? So, and she was also rearing her daughter for leadership as well. She ended up passing on too early, but it's like, why did she have to go through all of that in order to hold this position? We could talk about matrilineal and how all of that stuff sort of set up the lineage of the pharaohs. But I'm just saying, I think it's been a slow grazing sort of process. One of the things I talk about the Moors in Spain is, and several times the kings from Africa had to go back and get it together, because they were going up there and, wilding out and getting drunk on their own power. So when the Slavs, or the concept of slavery, which started with Slavs, they were allowing for white female slaves to be transported into Moorish Spain for the benefit, we'll say, of the caliphs, right? So now, there's this increase in concubines, right? They're building and constructing a new world, and it's beautiful and everything, but they're not really being challenged systematically anymore. Yeah. So when the slaves are introduced, these white females were introduced. Now we've got, caliphs that have 500, 1,000 concubines, right? So now it's weakening the bloodline, the original African bloodline, right? Which is why you go up there now and you see a lot of these fairer skin, can't tell if they're mixed or not people. Well, that's what happens to the bloodline after some time. So in a world where, you're supposed to be operating from a spiritual sort of monarchy vantage point, which I feel like Islam, when it was at its height, that's what was happening. You can't serve two masters, though. You know what I'm saying? You can't get drunk on power in one breath and then at the same time be committed to the sentiments of Islam. So I think it was sort of a decay that was kind of happening in a lot of different areas of the societies during that time.
Now, you also stated, like, in past interviews, that specific era in time is one of your favorite, being the Moors in Spain.
Yes.
And so why is that?
Oh man, I love architecture. I went, and someone just asked about the name of the book that just chimed in.
Okay.
So this is the hardcover version,
Yes.
just so you know, my brother, you got the paperback.
Yes.
But it's ancient people, and that's what we're talking about now. I went to school for interior and architectural design. I have an avid love for architecture and design, and I'm just so fascinated with the architecture, with the beauty, with the way that they laid out the landscaping in the middle of the architecture, the way they placed flowers in certain area where the breeze would hit the smell of the jasmine flower to bring it in and to, sort of engulf all the different areas of the building. I love the color schemes. I love just how ingenuitive they were, and how they created waterways and sort of funneled them towards farms and different areas where they grew fruit and food. It was like a very complex, systematic thing that took place, and they were completely self-sufficient, right? The Moorish baths, you hear people talk about these sort of Moorish baths in Europe all the time, right? And it's like, oh yeah, you think, okay, yeah, it's probably like a little regular bathroom that a homeless person or a regular person can go in and wash up in. Like, no, we're talking about castle-like,
Wow.
beautiful, they're called them harems, right? So these beautiful, intricate designs, and the archways, everything about them was just immaculate. So there was one section for women, one section for men, or they would trade off at different times. And the cold pools are everybody's doing that now. They were doing this in Moorish Spain. They had a room for the cold plunge, they had a room for the hot plunge, then they had a room for the steam room, right? So you've got these beautiful elaborate buildings where everybody can come, not just the rich, not just the kings, not just the right. Everybody has access to come in here and to have this beautiful, I would definitely say, spiritual experience, and get themselves clean and then go on out into the world, right? There is a in the book I quoted a passage that said a Moor would rather starve than to miss a bath.
Mm.
So the emphasis on cleanliness,
Yes.
right, is very obvious throughout Moorish Spain. So that's, and then ain't nothing flyer to me than a brother, you know what I'm saying,
Rooted.
with his suit, his with his gun on his waist and his turban on, or
And
his
right.
or his
In
sword,
armor.
gun sword, just that whole warrior energy, but like classy and regal. It just always really stuck out to me.
Mm. And so that's great. And so you're saying, so how did the Moors fall, right? In 1492. You stated a little bit about they basically got off their square, right? And they started having an increase in concubines and having an increase in white women and so forth, and not rooted in their spirituality.
Yeah,
So they got off what it truly meant to be Muslim, right? Truly following Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him,
yeah,
and started drifting away and drinking, as you said, and not really being having any combat, right? Is there anything else that could have um, strayed them away from prolonging their rulership in Spain and other parts of Europe?
well, so we have to remember the whole time that this is going on, there is, most of the Europeans who have been at that point under the guise of, the monarchies of that time were welcoming the Moors. They were super happy to see them, right? And they weren't forcing their religion on them, they weren't forcing their culture on them. They released tariffs and tax like it was a breath of fresh air for most of the people who were already there. But there was also a subset that from the beginning was looking at these dudes like, oh, we got to get these out of here, right? And so they're sitting in the back, patient, plotting, right, watching. And so if European men were selling Slavs or female slaves, which they were all up and down Europe, particularly to African men, right, and the caliphs of that time, you would have to know that they were also sitting back, right, judging, assessing, analyzing, waiting for the right time. So we're talking about a period of 700 to 800 years.
Right.
So that's a long amount of time. And so I think the things that you talked about in terms of the sort of internal decay, and it happened on multiple occasions where the kings from, Nubia or Upper or Lower Egypt had to come up and reset the tone,
Mm.
because they were getting, all of the sort of the things that they were getting into, the sloth that was developing the culture, so to speak. So it was all of that. It was the weakening of the bloodline, actually. And then it was also when Isabella and Ferdinand got married, that brought two very powerful houses together. And when those two houses unified, they came together and built the army that eventually created the conquistadors, which eventually was the last blow to Moorish Spain. But they had been getting, the monarchy had been weakening for some period. I would say that 200 to 300 year period from like 1100 to like 1400, there was a lot of infighting, right? The kings who came from Africa to come sort of put things back in place, they were always like, why are, they looked at them like they were primitive and silly, right? How did you guys get this out of whack? So it was a number of all of those things, and then eventually, when those two houses came together, that was the final blow.
Mm. And I think you said this in your introduction of the book as well. We must be able to stop romanticizing
Yes,
our history, right?
yes,
And as you just mentioned, that's the ugly
Yeah.
truth. That's the ugly truth, right? We fell because of, some internal factors, and then, external as well.
Yes.
But some people, they know that, but they don't want to, I guess, publicize it. They just want to tell us the good
Yeah.
parts of the morals and of history,
Yes,
right?
and I was very clear about that in my intention. Like, we're not going to romanticize this, because if we're going to really truly respect history, we got to figure out how we got here, right? So there's a story in the Hatshepsut. I think it was one of the pharaohs. They started a war because somebody was in a pool. A visiting foreigner was in a pool, and they were making too much noise and like screaming and playing around in the pool. It's a small little thing that eventually led to, hey, we need to have a conversation, this is an issue, to eventually led to a war. And it was something so silly, right? So yeah, we are going to talk about all of the powerful beautiful kings and queens, absolutely. But we're also going to talk about the fact that there was like caliphs that had 5,000 concubines. Why? You know what I mean? Why? What?
Unnecessary.
Super
Unnecessary.
unnecessary. And then, okay, it's one thing, okay, I'm gonna bring these women into the fold, and I'm gonna make them servants of, not of me, but like go out into the world and do good and add value. That's a different conversation. But like, no, just there for your beck and call. Where is that in the Quran? You know what I mean? So I think that it was just a lot of things that like kept us, like I always say, there always has to be a balance between indulgence and discipline. That's why our culture is so out of whack right now. Everything's about indulgence, the turn up, right? But how often do we talk about discipline?
Yeah.
So there always has to be a balance of indulgence and discipline. And when you get out of that, that's when things start to, start to unravel.
Indeed, indeed. That, and I believe it was the like the authority of power as well, right? Because when you have
Yeah.
power, when you're in rulership, you can do anything you want
Yes.
because you're the
Absolutely.
one in power. You feel me? And so I think it was like there was ego tripping,
Yes.
in today's slang. There was
Absolutely.
ego tripping, and it was like, listen, we ruling this ish. I can do whatever. I could have as many. I can, have a taste of white meat, and I could have my wives back at home. You
And who
feel
gonna
me?
check me? Who gonna check me?
Right, right, right.
Yes.
So, it was
Yeah.
definitely that.
Yeah.
Definitely that.
For sure.
And so we are still in this very prominent instant classic textbook. And I seen a couple of comments where to get the textbook at. Can you let them know where you can get it at?
Yes, it's on my website, ZaZaAli.com. If you go to my page and just click the link in my bio, it'll take you right to it. And there is a paperback and a hardcover version. And I'm very excited. I'm working right now. I've split the book into a reader and a workbook. So I am in the proofing process of a hardcover version with just the reader without the textbook aspect, and then a separate textbook. So maybe for single parent not single parent, homeschooling parents who may have multiple children, instead of having to buy 4 books, you can buy 1 book and 3 notebooks, or just different ways. And maybe you just want to focus on the vocabulary, spelling, that aspect of it. You can just get that book. But I'm expanding the book in multiple different products, so where it can serve people for multiple different reasons. And then eventually I'm doing a parent teacher guide to complement the book for homeschooling parents as well as teachers. I have the book right now in the Marcus Garvey School in Los Angeles, which is very, very prideful for me. I'm very happy about that. One of the classes is working in the book right now. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And again, it's on my website, ZaZaAli.com.
Indeed. And I'm going to also type it in www.zazaali.com as well. All right, family. All right. So on page 189, sister,
Okay.
it states that there are a total of 84 pyramids in Miro. My apologies if I mispronounced the name. Is it Miro?
Mero, Meroe,
Yeah.
Meroe.
Oh, Meroe.
Yeah.
Okay. And there are 223 pyramids in Sudan,
Hmm.
which are which as more pyramids than any other country on earth,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
Egypt, right? Or Kemet. So why is that? Because everybody will swear that Egypt has the most pyramids. Why don't we know about this?
Well, I think they don't want us to know that the heart of Africa is really where the whole concept of what we know as Egyptian culture comes from. So Nubia is the mother civilization to Egypt, right? And so when they talk about the Nubian pharaohs, which we talk about in the book, they only really hone in on that 25th dynasty, right, of Taharka and several other prominent, obviously African pharaohs, right? So what they tell us is that, yeah, the whitish or the light skinned Arabish people who were running Egypt at a certain time were the main people, and then there was a couple of pharaohs, dark skinned pharaohs, that came in at a certain point and did their thing. But for the most part, this isn't who this was. Like, no, Nubian culture is a direct verification and validation of the mother civilization of ancient Kemet, right? And so when you go back to Sudan and see the pyramids there, when you go back to the history in Meroe, it's all a very conclusive validation of that fact. They don't want us to know that, right? So it's just like, oh yeah, maybe, and the pyramids in the Sudan are very different than the pyramids in Kemet, right? They're much at a much steeper incline, right? And so, and a lot of the inscriptions can't even be transcribed because they are in what they call the Meroitic script, right? And so, Amenesheketo, Amenarhanes, who were both queens in Nubia, ancient Nubia, we can't even really translate what it is that they wrote in the inscriptions because we still haven't learned how to decipher that language. But we can see many of the similarities between the Nubian culture and Kemetic culture. The Ankh, for instance, the uh, uh,
Ma'at.
right, Ma'at is definitely referenced. There's a lot of the inscriptions and the cultural regularities, including the headpiece that they wore in Kemet. We can tie that all the way back to the land of Taseri, which is also called the land of the bow, which is also referenced in the book, right? So I think that they kind of shy away from focusing in there, especially because the Sudan is like one of the major. They've systematically been keeping the Sudan locked in this frequency in this grid, not just because of the resources of the land, but because these people represent a very powerful, prominent period in history. They don't want them to know that. They don't want us to know that, right? So I think it's to sort of keep people out of alignment with what the real true history and how this all started is. And then I think it's also because, we talk a lot about the land resources and the natural resources, but the people of Africa are absolutely its number one most powerful, most prominent resource, right? That's what they don't want us to focus in on. So I think that's part of it too.
Indeed. So the great queens of Ethiopia and Kush, right? So, and according to the textbook, in the centuries just prior to the Christian era, there existed a remarkable line of Ethiopian queens. Can you state a couple?
So Amana Renis was one, and she is most famous, because she kicked the Romans who were trying to intrude their way into Nubia after they had already passed a certain level of expansion in Egypt. So Queen Amana Renis, and they didn't have to have a huge fight because she beat them up bad enough to where they ended up throwing up the white flag, so to speak. So her Amana Shaketo, who I show a multitude of her jewelry that was found in her temple. So she would be, what we would call blinged out, with very beautiful, gold rings and necklaces, and she was also known as a warrior queen. So there are inscriptions of her in her temple as well. And they ruled back to back, Amana-Renis and Amana-Shaketo. Queen Makeda, which is also known as Queen of Sheba, right, who is referenced in the Bible, but is also referenced in the Kebra Nagas, right, is controversial because a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that she lived. And if she did or didn't live, then that puts the whole lineage of the Ethiopian kings at question, right? And I think they try to minimize her importance and her value because they focus so much on King David, right? And his lineage. But I think that I found it fascinating, and they say in the Kebra Nagas that she made the decree that her lineage would only be kings, that the lineage coming behind her would only be kings, right? Um, and there's controversy around that book too, but that's not even the point I want to make. The point I want to make is that I went back and showed what are thought to be her remains, just to the argument about she never existed, that's a lie. And then also Mirab, which is her home, which is where her father was a king of, right? Showing all of these different sort of vantage points from this historical timeline. So those would be three that I would specifically hone in on, just off the top of my head.
Right. Indeed. Um, that's powerful. All right. So speaking of women, right? So as someone who studied the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, do you agree with this quote? No nation can rise higher than its women. If so, why?
Well, for one, we give birth to both sexes. And so the woman has to have a very keen eye and a keen understanding and a keen sort of emotional awareness, mental awareness, spiritual awareness, physical awareness, all awareness. We have to sort of be mindful and conscientious of both. I mean, I'm a mother of a son, right? And so for me, even just only talking about or focusing on things that affect women, like, nah, I have to be mindful. I have a young son who is a young man in the world. So his plight, his needs, his desires, and his, whatever he's focused on are just as important to me as to me as mine. So I think that because we give both to both sexes, number one. I think number two, and I said this in my Keys to Womanhood workbook, that a woman actually has two wombs. She has the physical womb, which she brings, physical life in through a portal, so to speak. But then she also has the womb of her mind, right? And so, from that vantage point, being able to speak life into another human being, being able to be of service and be careful and compassionate. Greg Braden said when he went and studied under the monks in Tibet, he said he was asking the main guy, like the main Sufi shaman in that area, what is the key to, enlightenment? And he said compassion, right? And so compassion is one of the foremost sort of, divine feminine attributes. Now, men can be compassionate too, but this is more so a feminine sort of attribute. So I think that from that second mind, what we're doing right now, the creation of this textbook, and me intentionally, not just like, yeah, I'm going to make sure women are in it, but I'm also making sure that I portray all of these men, all of these kings in the right light. Yeah, we want to talk about all the wonderful, great things you did, but we also want to hold you accountable, in your legacy, or, make sure that we tell the full story and not just the part that kind of makes us feel good. Um, and then, in ancient times, women were the spiritual priestesses. Women were the focal point, right? The matriarch, and even the concept of worship was always expressed through the divine feminine. And so I think all of those things, along with the raising and rearing the household, right? Using your kitchen as a medicine cabinet, right? Knowing how to feed your family to life and take care of them that way. The heart, all of the research that has been done in terms of the heart now, and seeing that, yeah, the real power is in the heart. Okay, well, women are the heart of the planet, Mother Nature, right? And so that we're being forced to sort of come back to the center in terms of that emotional, spiritual aspect. So I think all of those things are critical. And now look at the condition of our women in America. Look at how they're representing themselves. Look at how, because they understand the timeline that we're in right now. In order for humanity to be properly restored, women have to be replaced, not replaced, rethroned, right? Women have to be brought back to their truest essence of who they are organically. So that's why there's such a war on women right now, and a war on women through men as well, to keep us from doing that.
Mm. Now that was very powerful, and I know the woman also is the first teacher of the child. The woman is the first nurse. The woman is the first everything, right? And this is why the Nation of Islam teaches that you have to be very careful of who you mate with. There's a science in mating, and because the woman who gives that message to the child, that child gives to the world,
Yes.
right? So we have to be very careful of who we're mating with.
Yeah.
And this is why you see in today's society that so many young women and even young boys are sending out the wrong messages, huh? Because it's the mother. And granted, I'm not blaming anyone, but as I just said, it's the mother who plants the seeds and give the messages to her child or her children. And so if we would have better um, mating programs or mating services of some sort, like how we did it in antiquity of naval charts, and we will actually go to the mother, we will go to the family to actually court their daughter and to court their niece, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
There's none of that right now, right?
Yeah.
We're just looking at the outer appearance of both men and female, and we're just going with that,
Yeah.
right? So I just say that to say that how can we rebuild and restructure our nation in 2025?
Well, for one, I know, a lot of us have never been properly loved. You know what I mean? A lot of women have never been properly loved. And we could take that to the mother daughter dichotomy, which is a real issue. We could take that to the father daughter dichotomy, which is obviously a big issue in our culture. And then we can take that into the broader collective consciousness in terms of the way women are carrying themselves, and in terms of, the R word culture, et cetera, right? Um, but I know for sure that a lot of us have not been properly loved. And so for me as a woman, I'm emphasizing all of these intellectual things because I am an intellectual and because I love to learn. But I am also very, emphatic with my spiritual teaching, with my learning, with my research, and with my personal awareness, because we live in a world where consciousness creates reality. Our ancestors understood that. They left us a mountain of proof to verify that, right? Um, in the book, in my Keys to Womanhood workbook, I reference a story where Kenya or Uganda, don't quote me on that. I should know, but it's been a while. But I think it may be Uganda. It was Kenya or Uganda. But there is a story about the doctors who were, those doctors who were going out to help with, healthcare services for women in these villages, right? Women and children. And they recognized that the women were carrying the babies in the strap, newborn babies, right? And so they started recognizing that once the baby had to use the bathroom, this child's not wearing a diaper, the mother would automatically know that the child has to use the bathroom. She would go into the bushes, unravel the baby, let the baby use the bathroom, and then go back to business. And they were like, how do you know when the child has to use the restroom? And it was laughable to them. Like, what do you mean, how do I know? Her body is getting the same vibrational cues, right? Or physical cues that the baby is having when he or she has to use the bathroom. That's energy, right? That's an energetic download when your body is telling you that your child needs to use the restroom. The same way when a mother is suckling a child and the breast milk is being formulated, the saliva of the child is being mixed with the breast milk and going back into the breast ducts, right? And the mother's body is computing if the child is sick or has any illness, and whatever is needed to fix that issue, the breast milk will create the concoction necessary to give to the baby to heal the issue. This is You know what I mean? Like
But many of our women are not even breastfeeding their children nowadays.
oh, 100%, let alone what, okay, so if you're not breastfeeding, okay, so what are you giving them then?
Formula
Right?
milk.
Okay, exactly. So poison
Right.
warning, right? Not to mention those shots. Please, ladies, keep those
Oh
babies
yes.
out of those clinics and those hospitals. It's
Oh
not
yes.
cool. It's not cool at all. But yeah, so but this is high science. Think about that. A woman is suckling a child. The child's saliva is indicating that this baby is either sick or about to get sick. The saliva lets the mother's body know, warning, a chemical concoction is formed and included in the breast milk that goes into the child that helps the child either not get sick or heal. Right? So this is high science to me. So, we talk about a lot about like how the pyramids were built and all this stuff, and all of it's important, don't get me wrong, but like the study of the beauty and the magnificence of the physical body, even in the birthing process, when semen, 300 400 million semen leave from the man's body and make that track into the woman's body. By the time the semen gets from his release all the way up through the fallopian tubes, there's only like 3 to 5 semen left out of 3 to 400 million. And then in the fallopian tubes, the woman's body is the one that chooses who crosses the line. So she's going to weed, her body's weeding out through that whole process any retarded sperm, any sperm that's not healthy and vibrant. All it's doing this whole selection process and weeding out sperm. And the sperm that actually ends up eating, mating or meeting, connecting with the egg is the highest quality sperm. That's high science, right? So I think as women, if we kind of like stop and go back to the drawing board, again, indulgence versus discipline. If we've been in a situation for 300, 400 years where nonstop R word, selling off on auction blocks, right? These European men coming into indigenous cultures all around the world and taking advantage of the women, etc., leaving their seeds all over the place. And okay, so when do we as women collectively come together and say, you know what? Pardon me,
Yeah.
my battery's going low. Now is the time for discipline. Now is the time for us. Look at how our daughters are out here wilding out.
Yeah.
Look at how the 7-year-olds and the 10-year-olds and the 15-year-olds are carrying themselves. As a black woman, for me, that's our state of emergency. What are we doing? Where are we at? Where's the, you know what I mean? And everybody's just kind of sitting back, and because they've made the concubines, the upper echelon in the society. But it's par for the course, because as the devil's world ends and is ending, and it is, the way that God's kingdom is going to be fashioned, shaped and fashioned, is going to have to be by restoring the woman back to her organic rightful place, and then restoring the man back to his organic and rightful place. So it's very systematic.
Indeed. Indeed. So speaking of systematic, I recently posted this video about religion and spirituality, and Dr. Umar, he was talking about it. And well, most things that Dr. Umar say usually are controversial. But my question is, can spirituality and religion coexist?
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like everything else. You approach whatever the situation is, the ideology is, you're either approaching it from your higher self or your lower nature, right? In religion, the higher self is some of the most beautiful, welcoming, wonderful people I've ever met have been Muslims, right? In terms of the caring and the compassion, and just doing what needs to be done to help you, abiding by the Quran, right? Some of the best quality salt of the earth people I know are Muslims, right? And then you got people who walk in the buildings and blow themselves up with bombs. Now we know a lot of that is contrived, but I'm just making a point, right? In spirituality, you have these yogi teachers who start out with this wonderful following, and then all of a sudden 1,000 people have taken cyanide and are laying out dead. That's the lower nature expressing, right? That savior complex. We need somebody to tell us what to do, when to do it, how to do it. We don't care about the rest. People got to start thinking for themselves. I feel like the Bible, the Quran, the scriptures, all of the scriptures are supposed to be for you to find your connection with source, for you to tap in with God, and to sort of, bridge the gap between the individual human you and the all-seeing, all in all God is, that is omnipresent. um so yes, the whether the higher self or the lower nature is expressing, it's in religion, it's in education, it's in every facet of human society. Like the Native American proverb says, there are two wolves inside of every man. The question is, which one are you feeding?
Mm.
You know what I mean? We got Christians that are top tier people that just want to go out into the world and do good and help other people, that ain't with this madness. And then we got, MAGA Bible thumpers. You know what I'm saying? Who got swastikas on the back of their Bibles. I don't understand it, but it's a real thing.
Who
You
have
know what I'm saying?
what they got?
Swastikas. I'm being funny
Oh,
though.
right.
They
Okay.
paint swastikas on
Yeah,
the back of the
yeah,
Bible just to show, pledge their allegiance.
right, right. That's crazy. Speaking of, which, Donald Trump, he won the presidential election back in November. Um, he wants to make only two genders official, right? According to many news outlets and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. I think that's a great thing. Many people and a couple of other things that he's planning to do.
Mm-hmm.
He also appointed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be, taking care of the health department, which is also great. We're
Yes.
going to tap into that.
Yes.
But what do you think about Donald Trump wanting only two genders?
I mean, I think God was the first one who authored that, who made that call. I
Well,
think
yeah.
at a point now we're just kind of reestablishing common sense in the laws, and I mean it's great, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, score one for the home team, but like, is this do we are we have we really unraveled to this level where we actually have to have laws that say things that are common sense, basic sense type things? So I think it's great. But I just, it's I think it's great. I don't want to argue against it because I'm definitely for it, especially with all of the clown circus type of situations we've all seen happen, especially with the children. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Cool. So do you think that the U.S. is ready to have a woman president?
I think if we're going to have a woman president, she can't be mediocre. I'm tired of people putting women at the forefront that are mediocre women and just having somebody there because they're a woman. Like, I feel like, we need a powerful, well rounded woman that represents excellence in a lot of the check boxes that need to be checked off in terms of leadership. And I just don't think that we've seen one at the forefront. And just for balance, and I don't think we've seen one that represents that as a man for a very long time, right? We've been selecting and choosing very mediocre leadership that have just so happened to be men. So I think the standard is definitely higher for women, and whether the country is ready or not, I don't know. But in order for a woman to take that position and for it to actually mean something, for me, it's not just because we have a woman in there. Like, I would have never voted for Kamala, right? Because I just don't. She doesn't represent, excellence to me. She doesn't. When she speaks, it's not powerful. She doesn't. You know what I mean? It's not there. I want to see a woman who actually checks off the boxes and is excellent in a position of going for that position.
Mm. So now, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he has made clear that he wants to make aggressive changes to our food
Mm-hmm.
system. Thus, if confirmed to lead in early 2025 the Department of Health and Human Services, Kennedy would be responsible for naming some and to help shape public perceptions about what's healthy is and what healthy is not. Now, if all of this is true, can this be a shift in American society in 2025?
Yes, and for me, RFK is probably like the one thing that I'm kind of like holding out because I don't have any faith in Trump whatsoever. I believe that Trump has been put in office to finish what he started in his first term. I think that RFK, represents a sort of glitch in the matrix, if you will, in terms because he's got a long-standing history of talking about all these things, particularly his position on the shot, particularly when it comes to children. So I think that's one of those things we're just going to have to wait to see unfold. I know they're promising a lot of things, you know, that have been sort of ingrained in the fabric of American culture. FDA, right? CDC, NIH. These organizations have been doing this way longer than just Biden's. You know, this has been happening for 40, 50, 60 years now, even including in Trump's first presidency. So we'll see. I have way more, you know, sort of faith in RFK because this is something he didn't just start on this path. He's been in this path for a long time. So if we can get the fluoride out of the water, which is something I've heard him talk about, that's a major win, right? If we can get them to put a halt to the immunization schedule, now I think there's 72 shots for a child up through the age of it's either 12 or 18, don't quote me on that, but there's 72 shots on the immunization schedule for children. How? Right? So if
That's a
we can
lot, right?
start to, like, you know, kind of chipping off that stuff, the red dyes in the soda and stuff like that, if we can start chipping
Cereal.
away, yeah, the cereal, I think that's a win no matter what.
Indeed, indeed. So now, do you think that we as Black people will continue to vote Democrat no matter what? Because I mean, as you said, like Kamala Harris, according to you, she wasn't, you know, she wasn't it.
No.
And when she didn't get, you know, the presidential nod, a lot of us Black people were sad and heartbroken about that.
Yeah. I mean, I to me, they're both two birds of the same feather. You know what I mean? They both sort of, it's just like giving you the illusion of choice. And I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but I have no faith in the government of this country whatsoever. So for me, I'm more so focused on us, you know, sort of pivoting to a mindset of self-governance and self-rulership. And then, you know, the specifics of the on the ground stuff, you know, we obviously need people to focus on that, but I'm way more focused on us taking on a sort of more sovereign state of mind and state of affairs as a people.
Indeed, well, actually, the laws of the United States, you know, the Western Hemisphere, the laws, they have always been talking about that
Yeah.
since Noble Drew Ali. We have to
Yes.
give him credit. May Allah be pleased with him.
Yes.
But I haven't seen much of a like a stand on sovereign being, you know, sovereign being having an independent nation inside of a nation.
Well, that's because we're not sovereign in our minds. So I think that, you know, the emphasis, and I've, you know, there's layers to the conversation about sovereignty when we talk about, you know, nationality, we talk about lineage, we talk about land and all of those things. And they're all equally important. I just think right now the sovereignty of the mind piece is really, really, really critical because there is a full-fledged psychological and spiritual warfare taking place right now, and the chaos and the, you know, the insanity of what's happening in the minds of hearts of people, not just our people but all people, are increasing. So it's going to become very more and more difficult for people to sort of maintain their square in the midst of all of this, right? How do you do that? Being mentally, spiritually, emotionally focused, right? And so I think that, you know, just us start sort of stopping and going back to the drawing board in terms of, like, what do we actually want? What do we, as an individual, what do you want? When I do client consultations, I can't tell you how many times I talk to people and they don't actually know what they want. They're miserable because they don't have the life that they want, but then you ask them, what do you really want? They don't really know what they want, right? So I think we all kind of, as individuals, and then as individual families, and then in communities, and then states, and then et cetera, we all kind of need to stop. Really, that's what 2020 was, a grace period from the Most High, for us to kind of stop and collect ourselves, because we've been going with the flow for way too long. We've been on their hamster wheel for way too long. We can't even conceive a reality without the hamster wheel, right? Well, I want a reality where the hamster wheel doesn't exist. Not just for me, but like for all of us.
Mhm.
Being able to create without limitation, right? Going after your goals and desires. Well, what are your goals and desires? Well, I don't quite know yet because I got to work and I got to do this and I got to do that. Okay, stop. You know what I mean? We don't want to talk with lack and limitation. What, you know, and starting to, like, peel back all of that stuff, and then, like, that spiritual aspect. They've gotten, their control has gotten to such an orgasmic space because the way that they have us so stimulated in 1,000 different directions, all the power is in the stillness, right? All the power is in silencing the mind. All the power is in the prayer. All the power is in the meditation, in the yoga, in the spiritual movements, etc. So they've created a world that keeps us away from all of that. We got to find a way to tap back into that.
Right, right. And but I think you said it if we was listening, right? That we need to have a sovereign mind
Yes,
to begin with.
exactly.
And we need to have a knowledge of self.
Yes,
And so in order to and in order to do that, as you said, sister, we must be silent.
yeah,
Be silent in the chaos.
yes,
Be silent in the disorderly conduct.
yes,
And really be still and tap into your mind.
yes.
Be still and envision the future. Envision what you want to be in 5 to 10 years. You
Hmm.
know that they have a 25 to 50 year plan on us, but we don't even have a 2 year plan, huh? But we have a plan for next Saturday, though. We have
Yeah,
a
that's a
plan for
fact.
New Year's Day, though,
That's a fact.
huh? But this is the truth. But we don't have a 2 to 5 year plan on self.
Yeah,
We don't have a 2 to 5 year plan for our family.
yeah, that's a
So
fact.
right. So when we talk about sovereignty, as you said, it's layered, but everything starts in the mind, right? Some people say that it starts in the heart because you feel, right?
Mm,
But that's debatable.
yeah,
But everything starts in the mind, and so what you think creates your reality,
yes,
right? And so, but we have to be conscious and wary of that, and really start to make constructive changes in 2025.
yes.
Um, and so, that being said, having sovereignty in the mind, being still, meditating, anything else that you can give to our sisters and brothers that can be tangible, that we can make tangible changes for 2025.
Fasting.
Good one.
Absolutely. Incorporating fasting into your ongoing regimen is critical right now. I mean, I cannot, the fasting aspect and the things you mentioned, developing a healthy relationship with your breath, right? Not just like the way you breathe, but like understanding what's actually happening when you're breathing. The nose and the breathing in and then breathing out. There's a whole scientific, sort of equation behind that cleans your bloodstream, that settles your neurological system, that can pull you out of anxiety, stress, worry, etc. But that's through the breath, breathing, right? Doesn't cost any money. Tapping in with nature, spending more time in nature, away from your phone, away from your computer, away from all technology is critical. And I think like finding something that makes you curious about life and interested about life and learning. And we came here to create. What is the Bible say? Be fruitful and multiply. That's not just talking about having children. That's talking about creating a whole world, right? I'm here in LA, some of the most marvelous, beautiful architecture just blows my mind how they merge nature with, the physical human ingenuity with the beauty of the natural landscape, right? And so we need to be curious and inquisitive about life again. We need to be, like I've always said, there's going to come a day when there's going to be a table where decisions are going to have to be made, but like from a righteous, godly perspective, right? Who's going to be at that table? What are we going to be talking about? What do we have to talk about? What are we thinking about in terms of building infrastructure and institutions and, school systems and agriculture and architecture and, learning and all these different sort of caveats of what it takes for a society and a civilization to run? Pick one or pick five. I got like five. You know what I'm saying? And I'm feeling real good about all of them because they all bring me joy. So it's like we got to stop trying to build organizations and institutions on the backs of broken people. It's not working, right? So what we need to do is find that sort of personal power, that individual passion, the thing that you love, that only you can bring to the table, that you're good at, that you're savvy about, and hone in on that. Study it, become a part of it, read it, learn it, take the class, take the online course, right? Find something that makes you feel excited and invigorated about life, and then master it. That's a great starting point. And from there, everything else can sort of like billow out and add value to everything that you're trying to accomplish and become.
Master yourself. Master
Yes,
yourself is paramount.
absolutely.
Love that. Love that. Man, beloved, I don't want to keep you too long. Thank you for your time, though. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for all that you do. For our people. Thank you for all that you do for the future, as well. And just thank you for being,
Oh,
right?
man.
Just thank you for being your natural self, your organic and authentic self.
Thank you.
And yeah, and with that being said, thank you for the textbook again. Lovely, lovely
Yes,
textbook family.
you are most
Ancient
welcome.
people, because we are an ancient people. You stated real quick that we are called many names, right? Black, brown, more, so on and so forth, black or more.
Mhm.
And then you stated at the end in your book, dot 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 dot. We are an ancient
Yes.
people. Elaborate on that, because we won't call ourselves ancient, but we'll call ourselves black or brown.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think the proof is in the pudding in terms of the ancient aspect. This is what I wrote in my intro. Black, African, African American, African diaspora, Negro, Moors, Hebrews, dark skin, brown skin, melanated, indigenous, aboriginal, aborigine, original, Asiatic, native, American, Australian, Hawaiian, etc., also known as ancient people. And in I went on to say, as you can see from the names and titles listed above, this book is about unity and connection. Each of those titles are referenced in this book as a means of identifying these ancient people who called themselves different names, yet all played their position of expanding consciousness and adding value to the collective. Whatever title you prefer will be honored here. That is to neutralize the people who just want to be contrary and argue for the sake of arguing. Like, no, like you, assalamu alaikum. Oh, okay, hotep. Okay, shalom. Okay, what's good? You know what I mean? Like, wherever you are, I can meet you there, because I'm not trying. There's a lot of teachers out here looking for students, right? I just want to report the information and put my vantage point on it, and then put your vantage point on it, and then we can come out with some representation of truth. But the main goal is to inspire you. We're talking about people that live 10, 20, 50, 100,000 years ago. What will they be saying about you? What will they be saying about us? You know what I'm saying? Because eventually we're going to be those ancient people if we do it right. Right? Shetson was here like what, 3,500, 4,000 years ago. We're still talking about her to this day. Okay, that's a legacy, right? So I want to inspire those of us that are like, yeah, I can't. I know Mike Tyson said he don't talk about legacy, but Mike Tyson is in a field of his own, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm a writer. I'm thinking about my legacy, but not on no egoic type tip, but like, yeah, we're still talking about people from 5,000, 10,000 years ago because they had a powerful impact, because they changed the game, because they did something that was worthy of us talking about 4,000, 5,000 years ago. Satan is on 10 in our world right now, ladies and gentlemen. I think we should all be paying attention, right? So if Satan's on 10, where is God's army? Where are the bearers of light? Where are the truth tellers? Where are the people that can walk in a room and through your energetic resonance raise the vibration? Where are the energy stabilizers, the grid stabilizers, right? Those of us that have the courage and conviction to speak truth to power. The audacity of me to write a history textbook, right? Of course I did. Why wouldn't I? I'm going to write another one as soon as I'm done with this. We need audacity. We need boldness. We need colorful introspection. We need to inspire a new generation of children, kings and queens. Like I said, the Sexy Red and the Nicki Minaj and the Cardi B frequency is strong, right? So we're all playing a part in a agenda that has been unfolding for 100 years now. That stuff that happened in 2020, that was planned 100 years ago. Okay, so if Hollywood is Satan's vision board, where's God's? You see what I'm saying? So
Right,
countering
right.
wherever that Agent Smith energy shows up, where Shaitan, whatever we want to call it, lower nature, etc., demonic demon, I'm okay with all of that. well, how do we represent and radiate an energy of consciousness and truth and light where we outshine darkness where darkness can't even exist in the midst of that type of light?
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's.
You breaking up, sis? You still there? Uh-oh. Sister Zaza, you still there? I think she's breaking up, family. There we go. As soon as she's talking about Satan, there we go. Sister Zaza, you still there? Man, family. I think, I'm not sure if her battery died or she lost connection somehow, some way. I think her battery just died. But family, that is the end of our interview. Man, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. All right. The key word of the day is inspiration. Sister Zaza just said, are you inspiring? Are you inspiring future generations to come? Right. We are a people of inspiration and passion. Huh? So let's be inspiring to the younger generation. Let's be inspiring to one another. Okay. And impactful as well. Inspiration and impactful. So let's be impactful for 2025. Let's be inspiring for 2025 for one another. All right, family. If you didn't get the book, we was talking about this book here, Ancient People. This is a textbook by the beloved Sister Zaza Ali. All right, you can get it on ZaZaAli.com. I'm going to type in the website, ZaZaAli.com, and family support. All right. Support the sister. It took her about 2 years just to finish this monumental, great book. Has so much information in it from the Chinese culture and civilization, Japanese culture and civilization, all the way to the Moors in Spain. All right. So definitely tap in. The website is there, ZaZaAli.com. And I think I just made a typo, but it's ZaZaAli.com. And that's it, family. You already know I sell books as well. And my website is DTR360books.com. All right, family. So definitely tap in. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. DTR360 Books. Man, 2025 is going to be a great year. All right. If you're into numbers, 2025 equals 9. All right. 9 is a very spiritual and divine number. Okay. The number 9 correlates and relates to the universe. All right. So I think she's back. All right, family. So we have to tap in and know these things, and we have to plan accordingly. All right. Plan accordingly to the future. You back, sister?
My bad, King. My
It's all
phone went
good.
dead.
Yeah. I thought that. I thought that.
Yeah, I was listening to you as I was trying to shuffle to get it back
So
on. So I wanted to make sure that I gave you the proper acknowledgement and made sure I let everybody know I appreciate you guys for listening and tuning
yes,
in.
man. And I was just saying, as soon as you talking about Satan, that's when it was like, oh, she gotta go.
I mean,
you know.
the devil plans and Allah plans, and Allah is the
Man,
best of planners, so it's all good.
indeed.
Hmm.
Alhamdulillah. Indeed. Yes. So any last words, sister?
Yeah. You were just saying how 2025 is going to be a great year, and I 100% am in agreement with that. It's going to be a great, wonderful, abundant year for those of us that have been doing the work, that have been mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically fortifying ourselves. We are about to get the harvest of all of the internal work that we've been doing for the past 4 years. It's a very heavy cross to carry to be conscious in this world. You know what I mean? To
Yes.
to see the wickedness and to try to get people to pay attention to truth, or get people to to listen, to do better, to want to be better. And that goes for just, walking a straight path for yourself, let alone inspiring other people. So the harvest and the fruits of doing that in the midst of this environment is about to pay off for us in a major way. So just keep, striving to add value, to be better, to do better, and pick and choose what it is you really want your life to look and feel like. Like, we can't be going with the flow anymore. It's dangerous. Going with the flow in 2025 is dangerous. And so really just stopping and sitting with yourself, maybe doing some fasting, eating some plant-based food, and cleaning your system out, doing a bentonite clay detox. We need that anyway for the white lines that they've been spraying in the sky for 30 plus years. So doing a detox and just sitting with yourself and being quiet. And instead of, I said this recently, that a lot of people have constructed lives for themselves that they want out of. You know what I'm saying? From jobs to, relationships to careers to businesses to, like, a lot of people have sort of painted themselves in a corner of their lives, and they don't really know how to get out of it. So I think that, again, like, pinpointing that inspiration, like you said, pinpointing that niche, that thing that you individually have to bring to the game, and then fortifying yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, is going to be critical right now. So doing those things, tapping into that love frequency, finding something to love, somebody to love, including and most importantly yourself, is going to be an important part of the recipe moving forward.
Indeed, indeed. All right, sister. Well, I got my family. I got my book. I got my book. Do you have yours? Do you have yours? www.zazaali.com. www.zazaali.com. This interview will be on YouTube as well, family. So make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, DTR360books.com. Anything that I post, anything that I you know I have as far as guest speakers is concerned is going to be fire, right? So I hope that you have learned a lot, family, and I hope that going forward in 2025 that you will be the best you, right? Do better and be better. Do better and be better, because now you know better, so you got to do better, family. All right. So any last words, sister? I'm going to give you.
No, thank you for raising the bar. Thank you for keeping knowledge and information at the forefront. Thank you for promoting books. Thank you for promoting wisdom. Thank you for keeping the great scientists and scholars and ancient, teachers and modern teachers of our time at the forefront in our collective consciousness. Thank you for being a highly intelligent, dignified Muslim and African and Black man. Thank you for holding our feet to the fire. Thank you for creating a platform and a foundation to remove the ceiling from our minds. Thank you for always welcoming me back on your platform. I definitely appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Yes, yes. Hopefully in the physical, inshallah.
Yes.
All right, family. Thank you so much. I leave you as I greet you. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom, shalom. Hotep, Islam, Alafia. Peace.
Peace, King.